Hello, Peter Baur.
Hello.
Welcome to the University Industry Interaction Conference. Welcome to Amsterdam. It's a pleasure to have you here, to have a representative from an organization that is regulating this area, to have a representative of government, one of the elements of the triple helix. So thank you very much for your presence and thank you very much for your speech. There are some people that says that in the triple helix or knowledge triangle, the role of the government is just to fund projects, to fund the collaboration between universities and business. What do you think about the current role of the government? It is just that, or can it go any farther than just funding?
Okay, thank you. Difficult question. And I think the point is, of course, I can tell you what we think, European Commission, but of course then, the national governments, it might also still be a certain different question. I think the point is, obviously, we have funding. I think it's an important element in order to implement, to bring forward certain initiatives. But obviously, we think also there have to be action on different levels. So I think it's not only about funding, I think it's also about policy, about creating the right framework, the right incentives, to identify which are the problems, and then to help the people to overcome them. So I think it's obviously not only about funding. So I think governments, they should, and I think many, they do not only focus on funding. I think they try to do more. And of course, they have to provide the main thing is, of course, the right framework that, for example, facilitates, enables, and incentivizes cooperation between higher education and companies.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Another difficult question. Even when we're talking about the role and even government in general, but let's talk about the European Commission now. Even when we are saying that the role is about funding, part of it, and people still seems to complain about the lack of funding. They still say that there are not enough funding for European university business cooperation, that there are not many programs, and that it will be nice, or UBC will be encouraged if the funding will be greater. Do you think it's really that lack of funding, or it's just to actually have a better relocation of funding and make sure that the funding is having an impact? It's about quantity, or it's about the location of those resources?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, big question, difficult question. I think the point is I think it's both. Obviously, I think there is not, in particular, coming from our side, there is not enough funding for this. So I think, of course, we would like to have more. And this is also why we are pleased now, for example, for this small action with Knowledge Alliances, which will be an Erasmus for all, where we'll have for our, let's say for a program from education, from higher education, it's quite substantial funding, and there we hope that we can trigger a number of activities. Then the other thing also, of course, what we hope is that via this, let's say, via our seed funding, via the projects that we can do, we can demonstrate the value of university business cooperation, and then, of course, also attract more private funding. So also that, of course, the companies, I think they really see and this as an investment, and then they are also ready to support the universities to facilitate this cooperation. Of course, I think on our side we would like to have more money, and I think we could easily spend it. As I said you before, when we did this pilot action on Knowledge Alliances, we had almost 100, or the second time even more than 100, and we could fund 3. Obviously, this is not the kind of relationship or the ratio we tend to, and there is a big interest. But then afterwards, of course, you need also, the member state level, the regional level, and I think they have, what we saw also in the discussions, I think this is where we have to invest. So it should not only be on the infrastructure, on the hard part, it should also be on the soft skills. And I think this is, of course, also what we try to promote now in the discussions for the future generation of programs via the social funds and the structural funds. There is more investment into the soft skills, into research, into education.
You've mentioned an interesting point, which is, yes, we will provide funding from the government at all levels, regional, national, international level. But you mentioned also funding from business is needed. Yeah. I would say that that's a very good point. However, how do we convince business? What do we tell them to make them invest in university business cooperation? And another question, who do you think has to do it? who has to convince business? Does it have to come from government, or it has to be universities, the one telling them why they have to invest on this?
Okay, I think, yeah, companies, business, I think they should invest. Because, I mean, on the other side, I think afterwards they get access to the talents, to the people. So I think they have a big benefit. So I think definitely. Now the point who should do it, I think, and this is what I believe. I mean, in some countries, I think a number of or companies, they already understood it and they invest. I think I remember a report which was published in Germany from the employers organization. And I think they showcased or demonstrated very clearly that, for example, the funding from companies into universities for professor chairs, for mobility measures and so on, I think it exceeded even the money they invested into research into universities. So the point is, of course, this is in one country. In many other countries, this is not happening. And in some other countries, it's more. So I think we need more investment from companies into universities, and I think again it's not something where the government, the Commission, we can in any case only try to incentivize and show how to do it. But I think even national governments, they cannot just tell companies here you should invest. I think so. It's a sort of concerted effort from universities, from governments, but also from the regions, from the students, for a number of different stakeholders and actors to show that this cooperation brings value and that the companies really see it as an investment, and then they are ready to put also money on the table. And I think this is why I think this conference is very good. I mean, this brings the people together, it brings the problems on the table, and also examples of good practice.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. So concerted effort to make business know how positive is this interaction for them, to make them know their benefits and then encourage their investment. Another complicated question. In some European studies about university business cooperation, from the point of view of academics, it has been found that the main barriers that they have for cooperation is bureaucracy. Some of this bureaucracy may come from the university itself, so be internal bureaucracy, but it's also external. And part of it, I'm afraid, that may come from governments, and within government, maybe from the European Commission. Do you think that this is still too complicated, that the cooperation has a big barrier with bureaucracy? There's any possibility of simplification in the future? Because it seems, according to study, that it would help. What do you think?
Yeah, effectively, I think a difficult one. The point is, of course, again, I think as European Commission, we cannot really, we don't have legislation to, intervene into the frameworks or into laws of member states to say how this cooperation should work, how universities are regulated, because I know in some countries it's extremely difficult for professors to work with companies and it's not encouraged. I think other countries already, they have adopted legislation to facilitate it. So I think the point is we can only show, demonstrate, and then of course via our communications or policy documents tell member states here, listen, perhaps you should also go into this direction. But by the end of the day, I think it's obviously their decision. Now on Commission side, I think of course where we do some work is via our programs. And there might, of course, and I think at the moment we know there are critics saying that the access to our programs or the use of our programs, whatever, is not always the most straightforward one. There is a certain bureaucracy, and I think the point, of course, and I think we feel it also. So I think there are big efforts done now, for example, for the next generation of programs to facilitate it. So to simplify, and I think the point is we will have to see by the end of the day, of course, how it works out. Because on one side, of course, we speak about simplification to make it easier. On the other side, we have, of course, also the constraints. We have financial regulations, certain rules to respect and follow. And there is always this balance to find between, flexibility, keep it open, make it easy, and on the other side, of course, to justify why this money and for what this money has been used. So, I hope that it gets more simple for you or for the universities, for the companies, but also for us when we run our programs.
So it seems that even those that set the rules also have rules to follow. Okay, and my last question, and the question that I'm asking to all the keynote speakers, how do you see university-industry relationship in 10 years? What do you think it is the future of this area?
I think there will, I mean, how it was discussed, I think there will be more integration. And I think obviously higher education, it has changed massively. I mean, if I think back, 30, 40 years, for example, in Europe, the participation rate in higher education, I don't know, 5%, 10%, 50%. There was no worry about afterwards finding a job. Now today, the target set by the European Commission, for example, is around 40%. In some countries, we have 50% of young people who go to higher education. So I think obviously they have to, after they find a job, to be, so it's not a nice word, it's employability. So I think there is one big pressure. So I think the universities, they have to take a responsibility, and also the companies have to come in. The second is, of course, what we also was mentioned, is innovation. And there obviously higher education, they have a key role to play. Because I mean, there is the knowledge, the people who know, and I think they have to be brought into much more what is happening on the labor market. So I think this exchange has to be facilitated. So I think it will move on, it will accelerate, so that there will be more university business cooperation in the future.
We hope so.
Thank you.
So thanks so much. We really hope that is true and the cooperation in this area increase. And I take from you more or less the same message that before with Henry Erkovitz, which is about innovation, entrepreneurship, and integration. So we hope that for the future, and we hope that increase the cooperation. Thank you very much, Peter Baur. Thank you.